Good morning, members. I call to order the meeting of the subcommittee to study the effectiveness, costs, and management of public works projects. We have a quorum. There is only one item on the agenda today, that is measures on enhancing and uplifting the performance of public works projects. Now, this is the last meeting out of 6. The paper has been put before members, but I heard members complain that the paper was only ready by end of business yesterday. That's not very satisfactory. Now, Mr. Ricky Lau, despite this being the last meeting of this subcommittee, I hope that in the future the government can prepare the documents as soon as possible. I know you want to perfect the document, but members would like to prepare ahead of the meeting. Thank you. Mr. Ricky Lau is here, Permanent Secretary for Development. Please walk us through the paper. Thank you, Chairman. And members, good morning. First of all, concerning the late submission of documents, my sincere apologies. Now, this is the 6th meeting of the subcommittee. In the past meetings, we have discussed in detail the current situation of our construction costs and also cost control measures, the reasons for the high construction costs in Hong Kong, and the 4 directions for controlling costs, including enhancing procurement model, reviewing the design standard and requirements, application of advanced technology to enhance productivity, and streamlining approval process. I would like to thank members again for your invaluable views raised in the past meetings so that we can enhance the specific measures to keep costs down. We are already formulating the measures, and we will adopt the principle of launching the initiatives once they are ready. We are reviewing the efficacy of measures already launched with a view to further minimizing the cost. Now, there are 3 aspects in today's topic. First, construction cost indices in the markets. Now, during the stage of project inception and before tendering, we can arrive at a cost estimate with these indices. And during the work period, when there are changes in wages and construction material cost, we can prepare for these changes and arrive at a better estimation and ensure better cost management. Second, updated measures on reviewing and monitoring cost estimations and expenditures. 3, the supply situation of construction material and measures to stabilize and consolidate the supply chain. Now, we have prepared a PowerPoint presentation for members. If I may, I would defer to Mr. Frankie Fong, PAS for Development, to present the PowerPoint, and then we will listen to members' views and questions. Yes, please continue. Thank you, Chairman. In the following, I will brief members on the various aspects mentioned just now. Now, let me summarize the performances of our capital works projects. Now, Hong Kong's infrastructure has been at a leading position in the world. While we have been doing well in terms of managing the cost of capital works, only a few projects require additional funding. Over the past 5 years, for projects involving delay, the average length of delay is usually 2 quarters, mainly due to unforeseeable circumstances, for example, COVID and inclement weather. Now, the delay has been reduced by 1 quarter compared with 5 years ago. Now, according to Professor Van Flyberg from the Oxford University, compared with the performance in Canada, Denmark, Holland, or Netherlands, Sweden, and Britain, our performance is better in terms of mechanism on cost control, and there is less likelihood on cost overrun. Now, back to today's topic. Estimation methodologies on works projects and relevant indices in the market, and also measures to strengthen monitoring and estimation, and 3, supply of construction materials. Now, we strive to arrive at an accurate estimate to prevent the likelihood of overrun. Now, the inception stage and at the detailed design stage, preliminary estimations would be made. Now, we will base on the similar price, based on the pricing of similar projects in the past, and also discount the per unit cost to form a price estimation. We will also adjust the estimation with the construction cost indices change. Now, during the inception stage, there is only limited information on the geology of the projects, the requirements for materials, and also work restrictions. So the estimation is only preliminary. Now, the project strategy and control office would review the estimation as a third party and help the departments to enhance the design based on the principle of target-oriented and no frills. Now, there are 2 examples. On the left, this is a footbridge. Now, the unit cost is some $700,000 to $1 million for each meter of bridge. Now, so in arriving at the estimation, the team would adopt a per unit cost of $700,000 for the 40 meters of the footbridge, and it will be multiplied by the construction cost index adjustment, and arriving at the $30 million cost. The other one is a rising main. I would not go into details of that. At this inception stage, this is just a preliminary estimation because of the availability of limited details. Now, prior to tendering, the teams will have relatively specific details on the projects. There will also be a construction material list, so we can make a better cost estimate. According to the construction material list, the team will break down the list into various items and consider the uniqueness and complexity of each item, as well as comparing the item with similar contracts approved recently. Also, the team will pay heed to the trend of the tender price index in assessing the return tender. Now, after that, the project would be submitted to the Project Strategy and Control Office for reviewing the cost estimates. And the office will combine data in the past and its past experience in negotiating design enhancement with the relevant departments and bureaus. For example, different design plans, work method, and procurement model, and also wider application of advanced technology to arrive at a more efficient design. Now, in submitting a funding proposal to the LegCo, the cost estimate will be presented as price of the day prices. Now, the Office of the Government Economist would make reference to the price adjustment factors and discounts the expenditure into actual payments in the future. Now, concerning the price adjustment index, it incorporates price changes during the work period and also geopolitical reasons as well as other factors. Now, to arrive at a more accurate cost estimate since September 2020, before submitting a proposal to the LegCo for approval, we will adopt simultaneous tendering where possible in procuring work contracts and consultancy contracts. Now, concerning the relevant indices in the construction industry, first, construction cost index. Now, to track the trend of various construction costs, the government regularly formulates and prepare the highways department's construction cost index and the civil engineering index. Now, both indices are based on the statistics issued by the CNSD on construction material costs and construction workers' wages. The indices would be published each month. Now, the weighting factor for construction material is 70%, and the weighting factor for workers' wages 30%. Now, for the civil engineering indices, they are 58% and 42% respectively. Now, based on the nature, different types of nature of works, the weighting factors will differ. As shown by this chart, over the past 10 years, both indices remain stable. With the exception of 2021 and 2020, there was a spike, but beyond that, it is stable. Now, tender price index. Besides using the construction cost index to trace the change in construction costs, we also adopt the tender price index to gauge the trend in tender bidding. Now, besides workers' wage and construction material cost changes, there are other factors affecting the tender price index. For example, overall work volume, global economic environment, market outlook, bidding strategies, and other considerations like risk and profit. So the uncertainty is higher than the previous two. Now, BWTPI and CEWTPI are both prepared and published and updated by the Development Bureau. Now, the tender price index covers a basket of factors. It tracks a basket of per item prices of projects, and it is based on the return tender and approved contract price changes. It covers some 200 items like cement, rebar, and asphalt. Now, besides gauging the trend in tender bidding, it also helps the Bureau to understand the latest market situation. Now, this is a chart for the index. Over the past 10 years, under BWTPI and CEWTPI, the tender price index surged to a height in year 2015 and 2016, and then there was a decline. In year 2020 and 2021, there was a rebound. Now, there is small fluctuation to the CWTPI tender price index, while the BWTPI remains stable. Now, at the work stage, we will make reference to the price adjustment factor. Now, in predicting the final price, we will make reference to the price adjustment factor. This factor is prepared by the Office of the Government Economist. In arriving at the index, they will make reference to a basket of factors, including the annual and quarterly data of the cost and price of public works departments, buildings, and works projects, and also the overall labor market, wages in the construction industry, and also latest changes in construction material costs, as well as geopolitical conditions. Now, this is the middle column is the price adjustment factor, and the column in red is the total expenditure of works per financial year. We will arrive at the money of the day prices by multiplying the two together. During the work period, on the principle of sharing risk as well as minimizing the risk exposure of contractors, we would usually add the contract adjustments clause in the contracts, and the payments to the contractors would be adjusted according to the indices. This will help reduce the risk premium of contractors in the tendering stage. Now, the CNSD will also track the changes in construction material costs and wages and publish the relevant indices. Concerning the combination of the index and also the weighting, it is decided by the task force on wages and construction material indices established under the Development Bureau. It comprises members from the trade as well as the government internally.
側邊我哋睇到咧。 In the tender stage, we can see what the contractors needs to do on the left. During the tender stage, the contractor will take into account the nature of the works. The ratio will be factored in according to the ratio stipulated in the contract, as well as the information such as the indices compiled by the Census and Statistics Department. Calculation will be done according to the formula or equation you can see on the screen. Two, in relation to enhancing supervision of the project estimate of public works. We use, for example, AI to enhance supervision. The Development Bureau collects data in relation to performance data of different public works department and use the self-developed integrated capital work platform ICWP so that project managers will have real-time information about the performance of the project. We are working with different stakeholders such as the one with Oxford Global Projects to enhance project performance as well as management efficiency. And we will step in where necessary. The Development Bureau will take into account the cost effectiveness of different proposals, and we will also help the relevant departments to formulate practical and feasible proposals so that the overall construction price will be contained or kept in check right from the start of a project. The mechanism for contingency costs as well as price adjustments will also be enhanced. We're looking into providing more detailed internal guidelines for controlling officers and the relevant departments. The aim is to ensure the proper use of resources. On ensuring the stable and reliable supply of construction materials, I understand the subcommittee members have concerns about the stability of the construction materials, so we're going to go over some measures in this regard. Construction materials account for about 25 to 35% of the overall construction costs. Construction materials cover cement, bar tendons, and so on. And we are practicing the approach of global procurement to source construction materials. So the construction material prices are similar to that in other countries. The production of cement or concrete depends on a host of factors. There are over 20 cement factories all over Hong Kong. In 2024, about 8 million to 9.5 million cubic meters are provided in the coming 10 years. We are reviewing the provision of cement. And in the coming 10 years, every year the supply will be ranging between 8 million and 9.5 million cubic meters. In other words, we have sufficient supply to tie in with the development of Kowloon East and New Territories East. Tseung Kwan O Area 137 started operating a cement factory starting from October 2024. The government also proposed to reprovision a cement factory of Area 132 in Tseung Kwan O. Reclamation will also be conducted in order to make it happen. Turning to cement, every year, about 2.5 million tons of cement are produced every year. In 2024, a total of 1 million tons of cement were provided. Apart from local production, we also sourced cement from China as well as other countries. In 2024 alone, we imported around 3.1 million tons of cement. Supply has been stable. Cement is a construction material with a high carbon footprint. In some public works projects, we promote the use of GGBS, ground granulated blast furnace slag, to replace some cement in order to reduce the carbon footprint in some construction projects. We expect that the use of cement will be reduced with the promotion of GGBS. With production technologies becoming more mature, the price of GGBS will be lowered in the future. Next, turning to gravel. On average, the use of gravel was about 12 million tons. Gravel in Hong Kong mainly comes from the Guangdong province. We also source some gravel from Hong Kong. In 2024, we imported a total of 11 million tons of gravel. We expect the demand for gravel will also increase with the increase in the number of public works projects. In the short to medium term, starting from September 2023, the landfill expansion project in NT West involved excavation works. Therefore, this provided a supply of reusable gravel. In order to ensure a stable supply of gravel, we have conducted studies in relation to underground quarries. We need to make sure the Lamte quarry and the mountains adjacent to the quarry have the foundations or have the conditions for the construction of an underground quarry. Quarries also provide appropriate venues to handle gravel as well as prefabricated concrete or cement. In relation to bar tendons, on average, the annual usage of bar tendons was about 1.5 million tons. Apart from China, we also source bar tendons from Malaysia, Qatar, Vietnam, as well as Saudi Arabia. There are a total of 65 eligible or qualified bar tendon suppliers. We adopt the approach of global procurement in order to secure a sufficient supply of bar tendons. We are proactively studying the use of central procurement to source bar tendons. This will ensure more effective management of the supply chain. We are also drawing up the relevant details such as the period of the agreement as well as central procurement of bar tendon quantities. We are maintaining close liaison with the industry. We are expecting a concrete proposal by the end of this year. In relation to ACIB Advanced Construction Industrial Building, we are preparing to construct the first ACIB in Tsingyi. The area is about 3 hectares. There will be multi-trade integrated mechanical, electrical, and plumbing venues. This is to cater for the burgeoning demand in Hong Kong. This will also enhance the efficiency of the construction sector. The operational mode study of the building has already been completed. We have also completed the preliminary plan as well as market studies. We will invite open tenders starting from May, and we will start the construction of the ACIB as soon as possible. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Frankie Fong. This is the last meeting of this subcommittee. I'll let as many members speak as much as possible, but please observe the 4-minute time limit. First, let's start with Mr. Chen Siu-hong. Thank you. On the discussion topic today, that is measures on enhancing and uplifting the performance of PWPs. The construction price of these projects is close to our heart, and whether these projects are completed according to the schedule. The third point, which the paper is silent on, that is the quality of public works projects, PWP. We are concerned about the management of costs. So the questions I'm going to ask are in relation to the estimation of construction costs. In relation to the quality of construction projects, we're faring quite well. In relation to electrical and mechanical projects, we have quite good performance. I hope that the quality will stay high in the future. In relation to the period of construction, it is subject to a wide array of factors. Inclement weather is one of the examples. iPark 1, a project led by the EEB, was affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. There was also serious cost overrun. The topic of this paper covers the estimate of construction costs. One important piece of information: we need to scrutinize the construction projects as well as their costs. We take into account the parallel tendering in the past 5 years. In other words, we take into account the tender price. In the Public Works Subcommittee, we take the price in the past 5 years as the basis. Seldom do we see extra provision being sought. In midstream and in the upstream, government internal resources are involved. In other words, if your estimate is higher, the return tender price may be lower. So the project may not be taken forward within the same year. Since 2004, in a value for money audit study commissioned by the Audit Commission, the Development Bureau goes to the PWSC on a regular basis. For PWPs having a discrepancy of $15 million or so, the Development Bureau will have to go to the PWSC to give an account. The tender price is often lower than your estimate, so I'd like to know more about this. Just now you mentioned the use of AI. This is indeed good. Based on the tenders you received in relation to public works projects, NEC is adopted, which means you have collected a lot of data for you to adjust your data. I'd like to know how you are going to improve this. Thank you.
Mr. Ricky Lau, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Chen. On quality control, we have a very robust monitoring regime to ensure that the projects are delivered on time and with high quality. Now, we always seek to compress the work period and even remove unnecessary work procedures to speed up work. Simultaneous tendering helps because to arrive at the cost estimate, we base our calculation on past contract prices. But the return tender price is a more accurate basis for calculation. So before submitting a funding proposal to the electrical, we would hope that the simultaneous tendering exercise would yield results so that we can have the actual price for return tender for us to prepare a more accurate cost estimate. Now, there is some discrepancy between the actual return price and the cost estimate. But if you look at the general picture over the past 5 years, the return tender price is 98% accurate based on our cost estimate. So the accuracy rate varies, but they range from some 98% to 99%. Now, in terms of NEC and so on, after implementing these measures, we have obtained much more details and information from the contractor. Contractors will have to tell us the cost or prices for individual work items and also the administrative cost, so that we have a better grasp of the overall picture. Now, concerning application of AI analytics, we have just rolled out an AI model called e-payment. It helps us analyze the receipts and then we have established a depository for prices on receipts as a reference point for other works departments. We have also obtained data from the private market for the purposes of arriving at the cost estimates for newer contracts. Mr. Gary Zhang. Thank you, Chairman. I have 3 questions, 2 on the indices and 1 on the advanced manufacturing industry building. Now, for the wage index, there are some views from the trade. 1, in the wage index, it does not include important public bodies, for example, the DHA, the Airport Authority, NDRC, and Housing Authority. These public bodies are also work departments. So fluctuation or changes in their wages will impact the market significantly. So will the government consider including these public bodies and their work projects in the index for wage? Now, another comment is the index shows significant discrepancy compared with the index prepared by the Construction Industry Council. So will the government enhance the parameters of the index so that the index align more with the Construction Industry Employees General Union? Now, about the construction materials. Now, we are now implementing MIC or modular construction method more widely. Now, the changes in the construction cost materials for MIC projects also affects the market trend. So will you consider covering this in the construction cost index? Now, about the ACIB, how will the ACIB operate? And by how far can it meet the needs of our works projects? Mr. Lau? Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Member. In terms of wage, yes, there is a task force on wage and construction material cost changes. Changes in the price of each individual item will be discussed by the task force. Now, Mr. Gary Zhang asked whether we can consider the other works projects delivered by other public bodies as well. Now, in terms of obtaining the data, there is a mechanism for obtaining data on wages of construction industry workers each month. So the CNSD would do that. If we are to obtain the wage data from other public bodies as well, we need them to prepare these data for us. Now, concerning the wage index discrepancies with the market reality, we understand that, and we have been discussing this issue with the stakeholders. Now, this involves many factors, but we are more focused on the trend. With the base, we can arrive at the index which shows the changes in the trend. So we are more focused on the trend rather than the accuracy of the numbers. Now, on the list, construction material list, we have some 20 items, and we can add or remove items from the list depending on the needs. Now, for prefabricated concretes, we will discuss with the task force to see whether we should include this item as well. And also copper wires. Changes in price of copper wires will also affect the index. And for these individual items, the addition or deletion of these items will be discussed by the task force. Now, on the MIC, the majority of the work processes of MIC is conducted in the factories. On the work site, we would take a measurement of the materials and then make payments to the manufacturers. However, sometimes, or rather very often, the manufacturers would require prepayment for the materials. So we have established a mechanism for making prepayment to make the cash flow of the contractors more robust. Now, in terms of the ACIB, we are going to announce the details soon. We will collect the views from the stakeholders. The ACIB is an important step for reforming the industry. Now, with the ACIB, we can establish bar bending factories or other factories for prefabricated cements in the building. Now, we hope that the tender awardee would also be responsible for building the building by using advanced technologies. Now, in terms of the operation model, we will consider build, operate, and transfer, BOT. After building the ACIB, the building will be returned to the government after a certain period of time. But we will listen to stakeholders' views. Mr. Edward Lau, I thank the government for briefing us on the details of measures on controlling the construction cost. My question is about a tender. We receive a lot of public works funding proposal. Sometimes simultaneous tendering has been conducted beforehand, and we are presented with the accurate cost estimate. Now, for projects which are not using the simultaneous tendering approach, members have questioned that with the cost estimates made public beforehand, the contractors can make a corresponding bidding easily. Now, some members in the Council and the trade have mentioned that maybe we can learn from the mainland and Macau and adopt a two-envelope approach and arrive at a median cost estimate. Can we do that? Now, third, about the indices. The adjustment effects of the indices are reasonable. But there are some sudden spikes, for example, during coronavirus. During these periods, construction material, including copper, will see the prices increase suddenly. So will there be a corresponding adjustment for these situations? Now for the ACIB, now let me be blunt. If you look at the Hongshui Q and Yulong South districts, there have been two proposals for multi-story modern industry buildings for brownfield sites operations. Now, after 2 rounds of tendering exercises, the government has to withdraw and revise the tender to meet the needs of the trade better. Now, in the past, when there is a shortage of land, I understand the need for multi-story industrial buildings. However, at present, land is not the pain point. Now, multi-story industrial building will pose significant limitations to the operations of the bidders. So maybe we should be modest in our aim. Now, you're aiming to have prefabricated cements and rebar banding and other functions in the ACIB. So can we start with a more modest scale? Maybe make the ACIB a two-story tall building and add more functions to it later. Now, since land is not a concern, maybe we have to take another look at what we are aiming for. Mr. Ricky Lau, thank you. 2 questions. First, on tendering. We are striving to conduct simultaneous tendering exercise for our works projects. But it is not possible to adopt this approach for some projects. For example, major projects in new development areas. New contracts will have to be rolled out at different stages of the work cycle. It will span across many financial years. So when funding proposal is submitted, we would have awarded tender for some contracts, but not for others. And also, some land resumption work may still be ongoing. Now, actually, recent prices of return tenders is also a reference point. Indices are also an important reference point. Now, sometimes the data we obtain is already 3 or 6 months old. When the funding proposal is submitted. So that's on tendering. And on the double envelope approach, there has been much discussion about it. Instead of the bidding price, we also attach importance to the technological level and the safety record and other aspects of the contractors. Now, our approach or our mechanism has its advantages. We're not just rigidly looking at the price range of the return tenders and just take the one in the middle. We would conduct an assessment on the reasonability of the price, and we do have a bottom line. If the bidding price is lower than what is considered to be reasonable, we will not consider that tender, and this has happened before. Concerning the indexes, now for the indices, there is the question whether the scope of the indices is not wide enough to cover unforeseeable scenarios. Now that is a problem because that may render the cost estimates less accurate. Now each work department or each work team would consider the characteristics of their own projects. The uniqueness of the construction material would be included in the index. Now the range of construction material to be used would be specified by the work team for the contractors. Now on the ACIB, before the consultation exercise, we have conducted a market sounding exercise. We have reached out to potential bidders for an initial discussion. The project is attractive to the bidders. Now we hope that at the very least, MIMAP would be a feature of the ACIB, and also rebar banding very often conducted indoors. So we think that rebar banding is also a likely function. But we do keep an open mind and listen to members' views.
We have been seeking government land to provide STT short-term tenancy so that we can provide sufficient land for operators. Next member, please, Mr. Andrew Lam. Thank you, Chairman. The information paper is very detailed. It covers a lot of contents. Going back to the point of cost control, we can see that the government has made a lot of enhancements. Just now, the Permanent Secretary mentioned a lot of indices. These indices aren't forward-looking. They have their own historical factors. Let's look at what the government economist considers. Basically, he considers changes in the economy. However, in the previous meetings, we can see that the government, the Development Bureau has been working very hard to promote the use of new materials. This is very important in relation to cost control. When the government put forward these recommendations, we suppose that the government will succeed. The procedure will be streamlined and compressed so that the cost could be better controlled. If we use previous indices to project the amount of works that will be completed in the coming 6 years, it is likely that we will arrive at a larger figure. Through streamlining procedures, I'd like to know how effective these procedures will be. Let me give you two concrete examples. In previous meetings, I didn't have the opportunity to refer to some cases. In the process, environmental noise management, road closure, these will affect construction works. Building equipment accounts for some 20% to 30% of the overall construction costs. If we can cast the net of procurement wider, probably we can save even more. But the paper is silent on this aspect, so I'd like to know whether estimate will be included in future estimates. On this basis, I'd like to mention some short-term matters that I'm concerned about in relation to NEC option C. I'm not sure if you have already collected some data. For example, the storage and transportation costs of construction materials as well as equipment. Is there any upward trend? This has a lot to do with the land resumption process in the Northern Metropolis. With all these factors, we'll have a better picture of the future than $120 billion on electricity generation or consumption. We'll have a better picture. I'd also like to ask about inert construction materials, not necessarily basic public works projects or construction projects. Thank you, Mr. Akilau. Thank you, Mr. Andrew Lam. You asked a few questions. Just now we talked about the construction index as well as the tender price index. We project the indices based on figures in the past. It is actually quite difficult if we have to project the indices in the future or the construction costs in the future. How effective will these indices be? Can they be reflected in the cost estimate in the contracts? That is quite difficult. We are still reviewing the effectiveness of these indices. Having said that, as I mentioned just now, the difference between the estimate and the return tender price isn't quite significant, is in an acceptable range. Expenses account for, or expenses are an important part of the construction costs. We are streamlining and improving construction processes, construction materials. We'll see if we can lower the construction costs by way of these measures. We are launching other measures as well. Just now, members referred to NEC option C, which is indeed a good platform. With this new platform, in the course of construction, contractor, project proponent, the government, we can all put our heads together to discuss the use of new construction materials. We will also see if we can minimize impact on traffic, which will make it more convenient for us to undertake the construction projects. The aim is to compress the time for construction and to lower construction costs. We have identified the benefits and we can see good results. Just now we talked about figures in relation to construction costs. Mr. Andrew Lam referred to the cost of transportation as well as storage. We can collect data from the contractors and analyze these figures in relation to inert construction materials. whatever construction works we undertake, there are always inert construction materials or waste that will be generated and could be reused. There is, for instance, gravel. Despite low volume, we want to reuse as much as possible. Some materials may be more suitable for site formation or reclamation. For some reclamation projects under planning, we hope to use these materials as well. For the three-runway system, as well as other projects, we hope to use these reusable materials as well. Next, Dr. Wendy Hong. In Hong Kong, we have a large number of construction works. On the performance of cost control, we've been faring quite well. I beg to differ. I'd like to draw a simple comparison. According to Construction Cost Index 2024, Hong Kong ranks first in Asia and 9th around the world. Singapore 27, Tokyo 35, Shenzhen 88. There are a lot of factors in the high cost of the construction works in Hong Kong. High manpower costs, overly stringent supervision or vetting procedures. It's quite difficult to look into all these factors. Based on this information paper, I have 3 questions on manpower costs. The CNSD publishes the relevant figures and indices. I'd like to ask about the calculation method. Do you take into account time as well? Time is an element in the calculation of manpower costs. Sometimes the vetting procedures take a longer time than the construction period. Next, turning to construction standard, I've been criticizing the slow progress of construction works. An expert came to talk to me. He's a professional, and he identified over-design in existing construction projects. The cost is actually very high, despite the safety level being very high at 40% or even 100%. From $50 billion to $35.6 billion. That is a decrease of 30%. I'd like to know whether the PSGO has been performing the function of a gatekeeper. Is there any information for departments? In relation to the Advanced Construction Industrial Building ACIB, the government is preparing to build the first ACIB on a piece of land of 30 hectares in Chengyi. This proposal was floated in March 2023 in the budget. Why is it delayed? Why will it be commissioned? In the budget 2 years ago, it was said that there would be a prefabricated cement factory in this building. There are a total of 5 workshops in Hong Kong. I visited 2 of them. One was operated on a short-term tenancy of the government. The government wanted to resume that piece of land and start the retendering process. What about former operators? If they weren't awarded the tender, then they would have to relocate the entire factory. If there is an actual demand, why don't you give the enterprises longer tenancy period? You shouldn't drive away existing operators whenever there are new operators coming in. This will affect efficiency. Thank you.
劉常秘係多謝。
Mr. Ricky Lau. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Dr. Wendy Hong. On the issue of high construction cost, we agree that our construction cost is higher than our neighbors in Asia. In previous meetings, we have presented members with the factors which contributed to our high construction costs. For example, wages, safety, regulations, and other factors. We have proposed 4 directions for enhancing cost control on projects, and there are other enhancement measures we are looking at. For example, procurement model, central procurement, and also cross-project procurement. Some results have been seen. In terms of construction method, we have established the Institute for Construction Technologies last year. So the Institute would compare Hong Kong's construction standards with other jurisdictions to see if there is room for improvement. In terms of design, we do follow these standards. In reality, the resulting plan would exceed the requirements of the standard by some extent. So we are now looking at this area. I would defer to Mr. Joseph Low, head of the Project Strategy and Governance Office, to see whether we can apply AI to find out areas which there is great exceedance of the standards. Now, in terms of the indices on wage and construction material cost, there's usually some time lag because it takes time to gather the data via survey. The CNSD does update the indices every year, but there is usually some time lag. Now, the ACIB was proposed in 2023. As I said, we are gathering public opinion by the end of this year, and we will begin tendering the project by the end of this year and start the work phase next year. Ordinarily speaking, it takes usually 2 to 3 years to complete the building of the ACIB. Now, there are some operations taking place on short-term tenancy sites. Now, in the interim period before the ACIB is built, the operators can make a bid for the STT sites. We will also help the stakeholders to operate on private sites. May I invite Mr. Joseph Low to speak on the design of projects? Thank you. Our building standards, compared with those in Shenzhen, the mainland, other mainland cities, and the UK, these standards are comparable, and our construction cost is not exceedingly high compared with them. Now, like Dr. Wendy Hong said, our work team may have provided for too much buffer in the design. Now, the Project Strategy and Governance Office is now enhancing the mechanism. Now, for example, site formation projects, there are other work methods which can save money. So we will advise these the contractors on these cost control measures. We also want to apply AI and other software to enhance the cost efficiency of the design at the design stage. Now, the PSGO is now applying these technologies to keep the costs down. Dr. Lo Wai Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. As mentioned by the Permanent Secretary, in the previous meetings, we have covered the most important factors leading to the high construction costs in Hong Kong. There has been a lot of discussion on wages, construction material premium, high construction and safety standards, and also internal red tapes. Now, to address the deep-rooted issue of Hong Kong having the most expensive construction costs in Asia, the discussion about those factors helped. Now, today, about cost control management and monitoring, I agree the government has been doing quite a good job. Now, in the past, overrunning issues were abused by the mutually destructive camp and the opposition camp to bring down the projects and to attack the government. Now, there are a lot of reasons for cost overrunning. If you look at the overall figure, usually cost has been saved. Now, if the final price tag is lower than the cost estimates, you don't come to the electrical for approval. So I agree that in the past you have done an admirable job in controlling the cost. But that doesn't address the cost issue of the high construction costs in Hong Kong. So we need to look at the two separately. Now, the second question. Gravel or crushed stone is an important construction material. Hong Kong has a rich natural storage of stone or quarry in Hong Kong. We can conduct a study to build quarry sites on the outlying islands, and we can revive the quarry supply industry in Hong Kong. Now, about the ACIB, to be frank, I think this ACIB project is ill-conceived. Critical work processes in the construction industry and storage space take land. You can just ask the stakeholders. They need a vast site for these purposes. So if you are moving them upstairs in the building, it will greatly increase their cost. And also, these industries are not highly value added, so they can't afford the rent unless you are offering them with ex gratia rent. But that means that the other stakeholders or other tenants are subsidizing these operators. That's why I have been saying that using ACIB to address the issues of availability of sites is totally ill-conceived. Thank you, Dr. Lo. We do have a natural quarry storage. Now, the New Territories West landfill project is about reprovisioning or relocating the landfill to build a quarry site for stone supply. Now, in the past, there were usually residential sites near the quarry sites. Now, we are now considering the idea of an underground quarry site. There are some concrete batching plants and asphalt plants at the site at present. Now, in the future, those operations can be moved to the Namte quarry site. Now, we have consulted the trade, and it seems that they are interested. We are now waiting for the return tender. Yes, we have heard Dr. Low's views on the ACIB. The operating cost on the ACIB is high. But there are advanced operations like MIMAP operators. There are operators of MIMAP operating in industrial buildings. They even have factories in Hong Kong and mainland. So we have talked to the potential bidders, engaged their interest, and we think they are interested. At this stage, we are gauging the views of the stakeholders. We keep an open mind, and we may suitably adjust the parameters of our proposal to pique the market's interest. And also, certain parts of the ACIB can be leased to private operators for use. Two additional points, Chairman, about the quarry sites. The Anderson Quarry Bay has been a great supply of rock for building, and not just that. It has now become a major development with public rental housing, subsidized housing, and shopping malls. So it is an idea worth moving on. Now, about ACIB, I really hope that you can reconsider your position. It is better to release the sites near the peripheral areas of greenbelt sites for brownfield sites operators to survive. Now, finally, despite my comments that you are doing an okay job on cost control, it doesn't mean that you have addressed the four major factors leading to high construction costs in Hong Kong. Mr. Dennis Leung. Thank you, Chairman. Now, there is an expert There is not an expert opinion provided in the paper. It just says that there is a small likelihood of project cost overrun. It doesn't say why it is so confident. And also the data provided by the department, by the Bureau on cost overrun is not comprehensive. There are also important information like project cost, project progress, and so on. I think we need to have more statistics. Second, the government has floated the idea of inviting tender for a prefabricated steel bar plant or a rebar bending plant, but there are no news. So by how much will it help minimizing the construction costs in Hong Kong? Since you are considering this idea, there must be some advantages for that. So can you tell us the cost saving to be achieved by this idea? About concrete and cement and asphalt and so on. Having successful experience in procuring some construction materials in a centralized manner, when will you extend the approach to all projects in Hong Kong? About ACIB, and there are some ideas, including MEMAP, prefabricated cement, and prefabricated MIC plant. Now, most of our public rental housing buildings are built with MIC components. Now, there is the worry that with the usage of more MIC work methods, it would hurt the local labor market. Prefab components made in the mainland would come with higher costs as well because there are custom clearance and transportation costs. So would the government consider establishing an MIC plant locally to save costs and provide employment to the local labor force? Fourthly, I'm worried about the small size of ACIB. It is just 3 hectares large. So can we have a larger site for functions and facilities which can reduce the construction costs in Hong Kong? Another thing, new contracts are already using NEC. Now, after the implementation of the NEC approach, we still don't know the benefits of the NEC. We need some figures.
P.S. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Member, for your questions. Regarding the comments of Professor, we will provide supplementary information for members after the meeting. Thank you. In relation to cost overruns, as well as MIC, we will formulate procedures for the central procurement of MIC. We have to think about the details. For example, the ratio of central procurement, what kind of engineering contract, the period of the contract, and so on. We will review the effectiveness again. If it is good, we may consider implementing this practice, that is central procurement, for other construction materials as well. Apart from central procurement, we also have direct procurement. Regarding direct procurement, we may apply this to other types of construction materials, and it's quite effective as well. In relation to the ACIB, this is the first ever ACIB in Hong Kong. There is interest in the market, so after conducting a market sounding exercise, we would like to award the tender, and we want to see the successful commissioning of the ACIB. It is more likely that we will adopt the multi-trade integrated mechanical, electrical, and plumbing method. If MIC is used, then we will need a much larger area. In mainland, the area required is much larger than the 3 hectares that we already have. In relation to testing and R&D, we are planning the land required for MIC. So we hope to identify suitable industrial sites in the northern metropolis as well as Long Kou Tan. We are faced with an aging working population in the construction industry. We are also faced with a lower productivity or a decreasing productivity in the industry. We hope to make enhancements and to increase productivity and to lower construction costs as well. We are working with the CIC, say on projects like the MIC. There are different phases involved, say transportation and so on. After training, local workers will be able to work or to facilitate the use of these procedures. We've been using MIC for public housing estates for some 5 years. It may not be able, we probably won't be able to quantify all effectiveness or the effectiveness of all projects. At the final stage of a construction project, we probably just need months instead of years to calculate the final construction costs of a project. Thank you, Chairman. Next to myself, I'm going to ask macro questions. We all think that the cost of construction projects in Hong Kong is high. After all, we rank 9 around the world and first in Asia. So we cannot be complacent. We cannot rest on our own laurels when it comes to this. I'd like to talk about the benefits of parallel tendering. The benefits of parallel tendering is that when the council approves the money, then the contractor will know the amount that they could offer. Lessor either disagrees or the entire amount is approved. It's difficult to steer the middle course. Is it quite difficult to reduce the costs because the design is excessive? $1.4 billion were spent on the expansion of the Legislative Council complex. But it was said that the return tender price was already the most reasonable among all the prices. The contractor won't admit to the fact that the prices in the past were too high. So how can we strike a balance? How can we maintain flexibility for the Legislative Council to revise the cost or the price? You often mentioned you have drawn reference from the price of different projects in the past. You said you had also referred to the trend of the construction costs. Whenever we talk about trends, we usually talk about the real estate market or the stock market. Trends are quite subjective. When members of the public hear about the term trend, they may say that the historical figures are on the high side, so they aren't convinced. They may simply say the construction costs in the past were too high. So how can you show that the government has worked very hard on lowering the cost? I have a technical question about one of the prices. What do you mean by contract price fluctuation, CPF? I'm not someone in this trade. I don't quite understand the formula or the equation. How will it help with cost estimate? Can you tell us more? Thank you, Chairman. In relation to parallel tendering, it does have its own advantages. We'll have to see what views or questions a member has before we decide how we can address members' concerns. And the Council, after members have expressed their views, we may go back, study the clauses, and discuss with the tender awardees. It is possible to make adjustments or fine-tune the contracts. Just now, Chairman mentioned two factors. One, cost estimate. We draw reference from the price in the tenders in the past. Probably the tenders were some time ago, so there are factors with which we ensure the reasonableness of the prices. Regarding the bill of quantities, we try to ensure the accuracy of the bill of quantities. That will help us ensure the price in the tender is reasonable. In relation to the CPF, contract price fluctuation, there are price fluctuations every year. There are fluctuations in prices, general prices, as well as manpower costs as well. Usually there are premiums in relation to the prices in the contracts, and we do want to minimize the premiums as much as possible. And we may have to make adjustments in the manpower costs as well. And this is exactly the mechanism for us to handle this. I'd like to ask Mr. David Leung to give members more information in this regard. Thank you. Well, I'll give you more information about how to use this list. For the list on the left, when the contractor submits the tender, we can already see the first and the second column. The project team decides on the range based on different factors. Say the ratio of construction materials from 5 to 15%, asphalt from 4 to 8%. It serves as a framework. And the contractor has to provide the third column as well. The contractor will have to decide on the appropriate construction method based on their projections. The relative weighting is included as well. And for the information on the left, the table is formulated at the time of the tender. For the table on the right, as we said, we want the employer to assume the risk of premium. The CNSC announces indices every month. These figures are already determined 42 days before the tender is returned. Say the 30th of April, 42 days before the 30th of April, the information has already been confirmed or determined, and the CPF contract price fluctuation is on the third column. We can see the fluctuations. Then we also have the fourth column. The fourth column on the left is the same as that in the right. For the fifth column, we can see 0.14185, and that is the price fluctuation factor. .14185 divided by the difference between the two faces, and that means how much the government will have to compensate the contractor owing to the difference. Thank you.
好，好啦，第一
That concluded the first round of questions. So we hope that in terms of the administration's interaction with the Legislative Council, as the PWSC, we have studied a lot of suggestions, and I hope that the government will listen to our recommendations and amend your proposals before submitting it to the Finance Committee. I know that the projects are very urgent, but it's not so urgent that you don't have time to amend the proposal before submitting the proposal to the Finance Committee. Sometimes we are very reluctant to approve projects with a particularly high price tag. So in terms of your interaction with us, I hope that there can be some improvements. Now, the second round, I will just give you 2 minutes. Deputy Chairman, Mr. Edward Lau. Thank you, Chairman. Now, in the first round, I mentioned the paper, but I think it has not included some very important issues. Now, the availability of options and competitiveness is very important. And when there are more bidders, then the government will have more choices and the tender proposals will be more competitive. Now, there is the GBA registered system, so this is a good move where the contractors and experts on the GBA registered will be allowed to bid for government projects. Now, what about world-leading construction companies and professionals? If they are to conduct works in Hong Kong, they need to obtain the so-called Type A and Type B licenses. So do we have a mutual recognition system with other jurisdictions? I heard some complaints that the bidders are the same old feel. So I know that it's not mentioned on the paper, but I would like to hear a reply from the government. Mr. Lau. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Edward Lau. Contractors and consultancy, there is a recognized list kept by the Development Bureau. In terms of contractors, we have categorized them into various aspects. For example, overall administration of works, building, and drainage, and so on. We award different tiers to these contractors, and in terms of tender invitation, we would invite the contractors to projects according to their tier. For contractors in the mainland and overseas, we have extended invitation to contractors outside Hong Kong to register on our list. We also consider the work performance of these contractors in their own place, engaging their eligibility. In recent years, several construction companies in the mainland have conducted work in Hong Kong. Now, in terms of talents, contractors would hire employees according to their needs. For specific positions, the post holders would have professional qualifications. Now, our professional institutes have a mutual recognition mechanism with other places. So through this mutual recognition system, overseas professionals can obtain practicing qualifications in Hong Kong as well. About the GBA register, that is helpful in terms of our integration with the GBA. So through a simple registration regime, professionals in the GBA can work in Hong Kong and vice versa. Now, recently, in particular last year, several types of engineers registered in Hong Kong can obtain a professional title in the mainland through the GBA register. Thank you. Mr. Chan Siu-Hong. Thank you, Chairman. Over the past 3 years, I have been urging the government to implement the centralized procurement approach. I have had lots of opportunities to discuss it with the Permanent Secretary. Now, I urge the government to use the centralized procurement approach to procure for common materials used by works departments. Now, I'm pleased to see that the government has adopted my suggestion. Now, for rebar and concrete, this year there will be a plan for centralized procurement. Now, I have a gentle reminder for the government. In the future, it is expected that the yearly demand for concrete is 2 million tons, but you shouldn't procure too much. Otherwise, it would change the market dynamics and take businesses away from contractors which the government does not procure from. Now, second, direct procurement. The government may procure facilities or equipment from the supplier and engage a contractor to install the facility for the government. That's the case for the Sha Tin sewage treatment plant. So why are you adopting this unconventional approach for some projects? Instead of BOT or a solely government project, by adopting such an approach, there may be unclear delineation of responsibility. Mr. Ricky Lau, I thank Mr. Chan Siu-Hong for giving us a lot of suggestions on centralized procurement. I understand that centralized procurement would change the market ecosystem, but the idea is to inject more vitality into the ecosystem and make it grow. Now, in considering the procurement, we would consider the amount to be supplied by a certain contractor and also the length of the contractual period. We would avoid focusing the supply in a certain year and also the various sources of the materials. In terms of direct procurement, we are now trying out the idea in certain areas. We have seen some success in direct procurement of MIC components. Traditionally, we would outsource the contract completely to the contractor, and the contractor will be responsible for procurement, installation, and completion. Now, the advantage is that we can just approach the contractor for everything about the contract, but there are some risks, including risk premium and also the limited choices of contractors or suppliers that the contractor usually deals with. So we are taking one step forward to take up more responsibilities. In the past, we would hand everything to the main contractor. Now we are taking back some responsibility in terms of supervision, oversight, and procurement to ensure that the working relationship between the main contractors and the other contractors are fine. That will help reduce the number of contractors we engage, and NEC is a great opportunity. Under the NEC model, the owner of a new contracts, the landlords and also the governments would be involved together with the contractors. Mr. Chen Su-hong, direct procurement can save cost. However, there is a common issue. After delivery of the equipment is installed by a third party. Then the government has to play a very important role here. If a problem arises, the contractor may kick the buck down to the supplier and then further up the chain. So you need to have very clear delineation of responsibilities, but that is not easy. So in certain circumstances, the government may have to intervene, and then you may end up paying more than you have bargained for. So you need to be very careful in rolling out the direct procurement model. Chairman, allow me. We are taking it step by step. We are testing out the new model on 1 or 2 projects only. Responsibility is a major issue. When contractors are involved, it is possible that a dispute will arise, and it is never easy to attribute responsibility. So we will try to spell it out clearly on the contract. But in reality, when something untoward happens, there would be a lot of disputes and arguments. Now, according to my own experience, direct procurement would be suitable for simpler work process and equipment. When there are already some common standards in the industry for installation of a machine, then it may be suitable for direct procurement. If it is a more complicated piece of equipment with a long warranty period, then when a situation arises, there would be a dispute on where the problem lies. Is it in the manufacturing phase or is it in the installation phase? So you need to be very careful in adopting the direct procurement method.
有第二次發言。
All right, myself in the second round. About increasing the number of eligible contractors. Just now, Mr. Edward Lau asked about how we should encourage competition. Has the PS heard about obtaining a license from somebody else or using the license from somebody else? Some contractors may have a license B or a license C, and licensee holder is only responsible for signing off the works without actually doing the works. Well, that is quite pointless. We need to make suitable adjustments to the standards. How could we encourage license B holders to upgrade so that they will become license C contractors? This will simplify the procedures in the industry. At the Public Works Subcommittee, I also talked about standard plans. Has the PSGO looked into this situation? I'm talking about standard drawings. We should encourage the formulation of standard drawings given our current fiscal position. This will help us to compress the costs further. Will the PSGO do more promotion in this regard, say public toilets, schools, stadiums, public housing estates? Do you have any plans to provide more standard drawings? Thank you. P.S. We have identified bad habits, so to speak. For the so-called borrowing the license from somebody else, it is the contractor which lends the license that is responsible for the project, and there is no change. For lower grade contractors, we want them to take more part in large scale public works. So when it is appropriate, we will award more projects to lower grade contractors that will give them more experience. I'll give the floor to Mr. David Leung to tell us more about the measures. On standard drawings, we talked about them as well. Yes, indeed. Construction costs are an important element in consideration. We do need to go by the principle of fitness for purpose and no frills. Despite differences in the external appearance, we can really apply standard drawings. Take classrooms as an example. All classrooms in different schools are also similar in their design. After we have standardized the design, can we adopt the approach of MIC? Then we will enjoy advantages in central procurement. Alright, probably I will ask Mr. David Leung to supplement. Thank you. In relation to measures for handling the practice of borrowing license from somebody else, we have stipulated in the contract that the entire project could not be outsourced to another contractor. We launched a measure recently for consultants cannot work with lower grade contractor. Instead, we encourage contractors to work with lower grade contractors. This will enable lower grade contractors to have more experience of working on more public works projects. This will give them more opportunities to be upgraded. Thank you. Next, Mr. Michael Lee. Thank you. This is my first time to speak in this meeting. I do understand bulk purchasing or central procurement has their own advantages. The more you buy, the more bargaining power you have. Mr. Chen Xiu-hong's concerns are very practical. In a construction site, there are 3 scenarios that may arise. The first one, everything is smooth. There isn't any defect or issue. But actually in the construction site, oftentimes craftsmanship is involved. Some construction materials may go to waste. Say bar tendons, how much to cut, how much to use. These are factors. By contrast, when it comes to central procurement, you just need to obtain the amount that you really need. Otherwise, materials will go to waste. The other factor is the price. Steel, silver, metal, gold. There could be significant fluctuations in the cost or price of these materials. A war may significantly increase the price of these materials. So when should they buy these materials? Say you buy these bar tendons at $100 today, but in the market they only cost $80. Should you buy directly from the market? Timing is very important. It requires a lot of experience in order to purchase materials at a reasonable price in order to avoid price fluctuations. In the context of bulk purchasing, the period of maintenance rests with the government. The administration needs to think how to strike a balance. When the government is earning experience, the cost estimate of the contractor already has a buffer, and that would lead to a waste in monetary resources. Thank you. P.S. Thank you, Mr. Michael Lee. I'd like to respond to Mr. Michael Lee's points. The idea of central procurement is that we directly enter into a contract with a provider. The provider will provide us with construction materials for a certain period of time. We have already taken into account the price fluctuation mechanism. And in relation to a 1-year tenancy, then such fluctuations don't have to be considered, whereas for a 2-year tenancy probably will have to factor in the price fluctuations. When it comes to wastage of construction materials, when materials are given, contractors buy construction materials, but then when we pay contractors, we pay according to the contract. Say if we need 100 tons of materials, when in fact contractors use 120 tons, we in the end only pay the contractor 100 tons of materials. In other words, contractors could not let any materials go to waste willy-nilly. Otherwise, they will have to pay for these extra materials. In case of any defects, we will have to see what is the reason behind. In case of any defects, we will have to discuss with the providers. In case of any issues with the installation, the contractor will have to bear this responsibility. That's why we need the help of professionals. In case of disputes, we may need an adjudicator in order to decide it is whose responsibility. Only then can we pursue the person who has the responsibility? Our meeting is scheduled to end at 12:45, but I will extend the meeting by 15 minutes. Mr. Peter Schill. Thank you, Chairman. I'm not a member of this subcommittee, but I'd like to say something. People have been saying that we have high construction costs and the construction projects take quite a long time. As Mr. Xia Baolong mentioned, we need to enhance speed, quality, and efficiency. We also need to make sure the prices and costs are reasonable. Let's not talk about manpower costs. I will focus on construction material costs. I understand there may be great fluctuations. Just now, Mr. Ricky Lau talked about how to reduce construction costs. We follow the BS British standard or the standard of the European Union. We want to stay connected with the global standards. The overall direction is right. Safety matters as well. But I'd like to say the British standard has been followed for a long time. With the availability of new quality productive forces, the national standard has improved a lot. Or it is even better than British standard. Therefore, construction materials will be available at a lower price. We need to keep our mind open. The Housing Department has been promoting the use of MIC to build public housing projects. Cement was used to construct buildings, but at present stainless steel is used to do so. We may be able to save construction costs by 50%. That won't catch us by surprise. We need to keep our mind open, but still we need to put safety first. When we can ensure safety, we need to keep our mind open and accept different materials or practices. We have a lot of infrastructures. In the mainland, the construction of infrastructures as well as the laying of materials are much more efficient. I hope to introduce materials from mainland China to Hong Kong. Of course, when prices are reasonable in other countries, we need to consider using them as well. P.S. Thank you. I agree. Construction materials, safety, construction standards. We have the British standard as well as the EU standard, and we update our standards from time to time. We also make adjustments if need be. Our standard right now is in line with the global standard. We have been using this standard for a long time. What is the difference between the standard we're using and the international standard? Is it possible to make adjustments? In some circumstances, it may be more appropriate to use the British standard, and in some circumstances, we may use the national standard as well. Last year, we set up an institute. We compared our standard as well as the global standard. We have established the BTRI.
Now, there are products manufactured according to Guobiao or the national standard. Now, I think Mr. Peter Xiu understands that to allow the use of the products in Hong Kong, we need to conduct another set of tests to ensure that the quality is up to standard. But it's not saying that the products made in the mainland is substandard compared to our own products. So in the future, we are looking to establish a mutual recognition system for products to be used on both sides. And also, Hong Kong can become a springboard for mainland construction materials to go global. Another question is MIC. We are striving to popularize the use of MIC across the ecosystem. Now we have a suppliers certification scheme which will be rolled out soon to ensure the quality of the MIC components they produced. Now besides MIC, MIMAP is another important market with a lot of potential. We are beginning to adopt the new technologies. We are aware that for some projects, MIMAP accounts for 80% of the electrical and mechanical facilities in the entire project. Now there are S60 or S90. These are reinforced steel or ultra reinforced steel rebars. There are also other materials for road pavements produced in the mainland, which we have been using. Now we are also testing out new imported construction materials like high strength or high resilience concrete. We are also identifying room for applying AI in works projects. Thank you. Mr. Peter Xiu. Declaration of interest. I myself am involved in the construction material business. Now, according to Mr. Ricky Lau, we are beginning to use construction materials produced in the mainland. Now, I think we need to find ways to streamline the certification process. We don't need double testing. Yes, the chairman is right. If we can simply adopt the Guobiao, the national standard, we would do that. If there are discrepancies, we will see how we can align these standards. Thank you very much. Our meeting has come to an end. This is also the last meeting of this subcommittee. A total of 6 meetings have been held. Now, the subcommittee has completed our work according to our schedule. The Secretariat will prepare a report for the subcommittee's work and circulate the report among members and then submit the report to the House Committee. Once again, I thank members and the administration for your active participation in our work over the past year. If there are no other questions, then meeting's adjourned. Thank you.